Hey guys, Eric Swanson, the Habitude Warrior Coach. Habitudes is all about your habits and your attitude. So in this next episode, I really want you to focus in on what your habits are every single day and your attitudes as well. And can you change those slightly? So I really hope you'll enjoy this next episode of one of our speakers, our trainers, our leaders from the Habitudes Conference. So looking forward to seeing you inside and checking out the next episode.
Now can you hear me? Okay, awesome. All right, so we're just gonna get my presentation up. I'm here to talk to you about hangovers. How many of you have ever had, that is not my presentation. I was like, I'm funny already and it's not me. There we go, all right. So I'll ask again, how many of you have ever had a hangover? Anybody have a hangover today? I admit it. Okay, they're not fun, right? There's nothing really redeeming about a hangover. But have you ever had an expectation hangover? And let me define it. You probably never heard the term because I made it up. So an expectation hangover happens when something that you planned on, something that you were really counting on, doesn't happen. Or something does happen, like you get that great job that you always wanted, but you don't have the feelings you thought you would from it. That fulfillment, creativity, and success doesn't happen. Or life just throws you a total unexpected curveball. And they can vary in severity, these curveballs. It can be a gut-wrenching breakup or just getting a parking ticket. But the thing that all expectation hangovers have in common is we want to get out of them pretty quickly, don't we? So how many of you have ever had an expectation hangover or have one right now? Hands up, let me see. Okay, that's most of you, okay? I am thrilled. I am so excited that you're disappointed. And that's and that's not because I want you to suffer, but really, all suffering happens when our reality doesn't match our expectations. But here's the deal. As humans, we learn through contrast. I know it's hot because I know when it's cold. You know it's light because you know it's dark. And if you haven't noticed, we're on like a massive awakening right now. Have you guys noticed that? Like people are waking up. But often we need a universal 2x4 in the form of an expectation hangover to wake us up. So within every adversity, I'm having an expectation hangover about my PowerPoint right now. Let's see if I can, there we go. Oh, don't look at that, moving ahead. Can I go back? Close your eyes, everybody. There we go. All right. So within every adversity is a seed of opportunity. And this is not news to you. You've heard this. But the thing is, when adversity comes along, we live in such an instant gratification world that we want to know what the blessing is right away, right? Like you've been going through something and somebody will say, oh, don't worry, like there's a reason for this. And you just kind of want to punch them because you're like, well, I don't know what the reason is and I'd like to know right now so I feel better. But there's this gap. There's this opportunity that disappointment brings for us to heal something, for us to be redirected, for us to grow in consciousness, for us to shift something inside of us, for us to truly transform, to let go of who we think we are and step into who we truly were born to be. But the problem is there's no manual for it, and expectation hangovers come with some feelings that we like to avoid. Like, you guys like feeling joyful, right? You like feeling happy and grateful and all those things, but how about shame and anger and sadness? And a lot of those feelings are feelings that an expectation hangover brings up, and we don't like those. We just want to ignore those. So we adopt coping mechanisms like, well, I'll just drink a little more, or eat a little more, or I'll just go date like crazy, or get on Facebook and torture myself by comparing myself to everybody else, or I'll just work a little harder, or I'll distract myself by going and rescuing someone else. Anybody relate to these coping strategies? Okay, and the thing is, they kind of work, but they're Band-Aids. They are not the cure. And what's so hard are the lessons that we're faced with when we're up against disappointment. The biggest lesson is learning how to deal with uncertainty. All right. Where should I aim this so that it moves? When you become the expert on expectation hangovers, you often have them. Guys, help. There we go. Thanks for being so patient. So these lessons that we learn are dealing with uncertainty. How many of you love the unknown? No. How many of you run to psychics when something's unknown in your life? You're like, please, someone tell me the future. But in disappointment, this is ripe opportunity to become comfortable with the unknown, to become comfortable in uncertainty. There's this leap of faith that we take, but no one tells us about the free fall. That time when we just don't know. But that's such a ripe time. It's okay not to know. That's what gets you and me out of our comfort zones. And our comfort zones are only comfortable because they're familiar, not because they're going to get us where we want to go. How many of you really want to make an impact in the world? You want to make a difference? Yeah. Do you think it's going to happen by being certain all the time? By staying in your comfort zone? No. Do you know what the definition of passion actually is? The original definition? Suffering. Passion of the Christ. Over time, we've evolved it to mean what we love. And it often is our greatest suffering that leads to what we love. It certainly was for me. Ha, yes. So, every time it changes, I'm gonna have a little party up here. So, my kind of road to having it all from external standards. So, like all of you, when I was born, there we go. When I was born, I knew there was nothing wrong with me. I knew that I was whole and complete, and there was nothing I needed to do to earn love or to get external validation. All of you knew that when you were born. And then life happened. Someone said something, someone left, you got hurt, you felt alone, and you started to forget that you're complete and that you're whole and there's nothing wrong with you and you're enough just as you are. And you start to forget that you're connected to everybody else all around you. I really started to forget in 4th grade when a bunch of girls started the I Hate Christine Club, which I was not a member of. Thank you for the sympathy. I wish you would have been there. You could have been my friend. But it was it started a very difficult kind of 20 years for me of feeling like something was wrong with me, feeling like I was unlikable, broken in some way. And like all of us, my ego needed some way to survive, some way to compensate. Because when we feel less than, when we feel hurt, we have to find out another strategy to get the love and the validation that we so desperately long for. So I call these compensatory strategies. My particular brand was becoming an overachiever. I was like, well, if I'm not going to be liked, if I'm not going to fit in, then I better be successful. I am not even going to get an A-, I'm going to get A+ in every single class. And so I became a doer, an achievement addict. And that carried me far. I was very successful externally. I went off to college. I was a double major and a minor. I graduated in 3 years. And then I do what all insecure people do. I moved out to Hollywood. And I had an amazing life in Hollywood. I dated and, yes, kissed some pretty recognizable people. Yeah, that, once that happens and you're still not happy, you know you have a problem, right? So I had everything. All the boxes were checked. I had this checklist life, and I checked them all. And there I was, 26 years old, making all this money, Oscars, Golden Globes, the whole deal. Still not happy. Still trying to fill this hole, this void I had inside by external things. And one day I just couldn't take it anymore. I went up to my office and I quit. And I thought, wow, I'm courageous. I took that leap of faith that I referenced earlier, and I didn't know about the free fall. So the free fall began, and within 6 months, I went into massive depression because my whole identity was wrapped up in what I did. I went into lots of debt. I got disowned from my family, I was very close to. I was diagnosed with an undiagnosable autoimmune disorder, and 6 months before my wedding, my fiance, not him, dumped me. Cold turkey. Walked out on me, never saw him again. And I found myself on my bathroom floor, and especially the ladies in the room, why do we go to our bathroom floors when we're really depressed? I mean, they're totally disgusting. But for whatever reason, that's where we go. So I'm on my bathroom floor contemplating whether or not I really want to be here, like on the earth. And that was a very scary thought. And fortunately, that thought was followed by something that I still to this day have trouble articulating in words. It was a feeling of presence, of peace, of compassion, and of love. Like everything I was looking for out there, I started to feel in here. And it only lasted for an instant because my mind came in and was like, oh, what was that? What was that? That's that thing I want. But I knew that everything was happening for a reason. And it wasn't just a cliche that time. And I wasn't particularly spiritual at the time, but I got on my knees and I said, all right, God or whoever, I'll make you a deal. Because I had been an agent, so I knew how to negotiate. So I said, if I figure this out, I will dedicate my life to helping other people do the same. I had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I felt it. And I know a lot of you in this room can relate to that. You feel a calling, right? You feel something, and your mind wants to put a form on it. Trust the calling. You don't need to know the form just yet. And just like it did for me, the form will reveal itself. So it revealed itself for me in writing a book, starting to speak, starting to teach retreats, and starting to share vulnerably about what I was going through. Again, I turned my passion suffering into my passion what I love to do. So it really began for me by asking the right question. And this is the question I want you to ask next time you're having an expectation hangover. What am I learning? Please stop asking, why is this happening? Because a lot of times we don't know the exact reason. The biggest why is because something's up for you to learn. It's happening for you, not to you. And we all are liberating ourselves from a victim mentality, right? We all want to get out of thinking that we are not at cause in our life. So if you adopt that beginner's mind and that seeker's attitude and that student's attitude of what am I learning? And one of the things that you're learning is how to really update your programming. I mentioned my compensatory strategy before. I want you to think about what yours may be. How do you chase love, acceptance, validation, approval? Are you a people pleaser? Are you a control freak? Don't like uncertainty? Are you a caretaker? A rescuer? Are you a performer? When there's tough moments or things get a little too intimate or vulnerable, like you make a joke. What is the way that you deflect? What is your strategy for trying to get love and acceptance? Now, the thing that's sneaky about these compensatory strategies is they get results. My overachiever totally got me results in the world, right? But it got me results on the goal line, the external line, not the soul line, not for my heart, not for my happiness. Now, I am not saying that all those external things don't matter. I want you all to have amazing careers and relationships and family and travel where you want to go. All that stuff is amazing. But don't you want to create it from an authentic place? Don't you want to create it from what I call your superpower? Now, what are your superpowers? So your superpowers, well, there we went again, getting ahead of myself. Close your eyes. There we go. Superpowers. What are they? They are the things that make you and you and you and you, you. How do you know what they are? Okay, just close your eyes for a moment. And think about something you love to do. You just love it. Like time stops when you do it. It can be gardening, it can be shopping, it can be playing with your kids, whatever. So for me, it's playing with my little nephews. They're 5 and 1, they're adorable. Now, I want you to think about not what exactly you're doing, but the qualities that come out of you so naturally while you're doing that thing. So for me, it's love, it's compassion, it's nurturing, it's creativity, it's wisdom, it's presence. That's who you are. You can open your eyes. Those qualities that come so naturally to you are who you are. You know, I've coached people for over 11 years, and I'm always amazed at how people don't realize what their gifts are because they come so naturally. So many of you right now are taking your gifts for granted. You don't think they're gifts because they come so naturally. I like to say God puts our gifts so close to us so they're easy to find, but it's the last place we look. We spend way too much time looking at other people's gifts and comparing ourselves to them rather than leveraging our own superpowers. And the other part of this equation is really about love. And I don't mean love for anyone else. Yes, that's important, but it starts here. Most of us are incredibly hard on ourselves. Ask yourself this question. If you talked to your friends like you often talk to yourself, would you have any friends? Seriously. Think about how you talk to yourself, the little ways you criticize yourself, thinking that self-criticism is a good way to motivate yourself. Everything starts with your relationship with yourself. It is time to stop being so hard on yourself. It is time to stop criticizing yourself. It is time to stop living in when-thens and really start to leverage those superpowers inside of you. And then that translates to every other relationship you have. So I have a little tool for you, a little trick. Would you like a little tool for a little self-love tool? Okay. So, that's me. And I carry this picture around on my phone and with me. And every time my critical Christine voice starts, I pull this picture out. And I look into her eyes, and I immediately feel compassion. So I want you again to close your eyes and picture little you at 2 or 3, back in those days where you knew your superpowers, you knew who you were. And just flood that with compassion. Because every time you're being mean to you or critical or thinking you're not enough or not doing well enough, you're not deserving, that's who you're being mean to. So you can open your eyes. And when that shifts, when that relationship starts to shift, everything else in your life starts to shift. You start noticing you're more loving of other people. You stop having all these expectations of everyone else to make you feel better. It's way easier to move into acceptance and forgiveness. Because forgiveness isn't about condoning things or agreeing with things. It's really about letting go of the judgment so that you feel free inside. And you start filling your own self-love tank. And you stop going to Chinese restaurants when you want nachos. Translation, you stop going to people expecting things they cannot give you. I know there are people in your life that hurt you. I know you have certain expectations. There's certain things you want from certain people. And can you accept that they just may not be able to do it? And you can't change people. But you can give it to yourself, and you can find other people who can give it to you in a healthy way. So again, back to that seed. Eventually it blooms. Eventually we understand why the expectation hangovers happen. And as we start to use these tools and choose things like acceptance, compassion, forgiveness, and presence, we notice that our time between expectation hangovers gets longer, and the time we spend suffering within one gets shorter. And eventually, over time, we realize that there's kind of really no such thing as an expectation hangover. It's really just the gap between what you expected and something even better. Thank you so much.